My name is Ethan. I'm 45, married for 17 years, father of 2. From the outside, my life looks stable, boring, even. A family man, a decent job in finance, a house in the suburbs, you know the type. But this story, it shattered the image of who I thought I was. I met Isabella through my company's charity foundation. She was a donor, a very wealthy one, the kind of woman who arrived in a chauffeur-driven black Rolls-Royce, always dressed in something understated and expensive clothes that whispered old money, not screamed it. She was in her early 30s, tall, dark-haired, stunning, the kind of beauty that wasn't just about looks, it was presence. When Isabella entered a room, you felt it before you saw her. The first time I officially met her, it was during a fundraising gala. I was assigned to greet VIP guests, which was mostly boring small talk and fake smiles. Then she walked in. Her eyes met mine as I extended my hand. "Isabella Moretti," she said with a faint accent, "and you must be the man behind this rather official-looking evening." I smiled politely. "Ethan Cole, just trying to keep the wheels turning." She didn't smile back. She studied me for a moment like I was some kind of puzzle. "Let's talk later," she said before walking off. It didn't feel like a suggestion. It felt like a command. And we did talk later, for almost 2 hours, about art, philanthropy, cities we loved and cities we hated. She laughed at a joke I made, one I don't even remember now, but the way she looked at me when she laughed, it lingered. That night, I went home to my wife, kissed her goodnight, and stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. Over the next few weeks, she kept showing up at events, ones I never remembered her attending before. Always alone, always making eye contact, sometimes lingering near me, just long enough to feel intentional. She began calling the office, just to check in, she'd say, asking about this or that project. But then, she started calling my direct line, then my cell. I'd lie to my assistant and step out into the parking lot to answer. I should've cut it off. I knew it. I had a good life, a lawyer wife, kids who adored me. But there was something about Isabella, her confidence, her unpredictability. She made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Not just desire. Power. Like I was being chosen. 3 months after the gala, she invited me to lunch. Not a casual thing. She had her private chef prepare a meal in her penthouse. The place was massive marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, walls full of modern art. We ate on a rooftop terrace. It was spring. The air smelled like jasmine and ambition. "I like you, Ethan," she said, sipping wine. "You're disciplined, predictable, safe." I laughed awkwardly. "Thanks. That sounds like an insult dressed as a compliment." She leaned forward. "You're married. You have rules. That excites me." That should have been the moment I got up and left. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Why?" "Because men like you never break," she said. "Until they do." That lunch became a weekly thing. Then twice a week. Then, late-night phone calls. She started sharing parts of herself, her loneliness, her disappointments, how most people either feared her or used her. She made me feel needed, special. I convinced myself it was just friendship, just attention. I lied to myself as much as I lied to my wife. But Isabella never pushed. She didn't flirt in the traditional sense. She created space. Space I willingly stepped into. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. She'd invited me to her penthouse again, under the pretext of discussing a donation. I remember every second of that moment. The sun was pouring through the windows. She wore a silk dress, bare feet on marble. "I'm tired of pretending I don't want you," she said. "Are you?" My hands shook. My mouth went dry. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "You're not a bad man, Ethan. Just a bored one. Let me make you feel alive again." I didn't sleep with her that day. But I didn't say no either. That night, I told my wife I had a late meeting and drove to the beach instead. I sat there 4 hours, trying to understand how I'd let things get this far. I told myself I wouldn't go back. But the next morning she sent me a single message. "I won't chase you, but I'll wait." I deleted it, or tried to. But her words, they stayed. And that's how it began. Not with a kiss, not with a night of passion, but with a look, a moment of weakness, A fantasy I didn't know how to escape. And the worst part, I hadn't even fallen yet. I was still standing on the edge, looking down. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite, watching the city lights blink like stars scattered across a concrete sky. My silk robe barely clung to my body, my skin still warm from Ethan's touch, and yet I felt cold, like something sacred had been broken. And I was the one holding the shards. It had been 3 months since Ethan whispered those forbidden words into my ear. Leave him. Come with me. I had hesitated then. Not because I didn't want to. I did. But because I knew what it meant. I knew the stakes. Leaving my life behind wasn't a simple decision. It was a war between what I desired and what I was. And I was on paper the wife of Raymond Templeton, one of New York's wealthiest and most ruthless men. But my heart had never belonged to him. It belonged to Ethan. Ethan was different. He wasn't polished like Raymond. He wasn't bred for high society. He was a man who earned his fortune through talent, wit, and rebellion. The first time we met was at a gala Raymond hosted, one of those suffocating evenings where men in tuxedos traded false compliments and women smiled behind tight lips and too much champagne. Ethan had stood out instantly. He didn't fawn over Raymond or bow to the social order. He watched me from across the room with something raw in his gaze. Not lust, not envy, recognition, as if he already knew I wasn't meant for the world I inhabited, as if I was his. 3 months into our affair, Ethan had become both my addiction and my escape. Raymond, meanwhile, remained oblivious. Or perhaps he didn't care, as long as his image remained intact. We had separate bedrooms, separate calendars, and now, separate truths. But one thing kept me chained to that gilded prison: power. I wasn't just a woman married to wealth. I was a symbol, a curated image of perfection, elegance, and loyalty. Breaking away from Raymond would unleash a storm I wasn't sure I could survive. Still, the seed Ethan planted had taken root. And on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I did what I never imagined I would. I walked into Ethan's apartment with a suitcase and trembling hands. "I'm ready," I whispered, "but we have to be careful." His arms wrapped around me, grounding my chaos. "Well, be careful, I promise." The fall began slowly. At first, I told Raymond I needed space, that I was going to the Hamptons to clear my head. He didn't ask questions. I suppose that was part of the rot already growing in our marriage. He was too proud to care, too self-assured to believe he'd ever leave. Ethan and I made plans. He spoke to a lawyer. We mapped out what the media fallout would look like, how he'd explain things to the board of Raymond's charity, to the press, to the dozens of friends who would inevitably pick sides. For a moment, we believed we could control it. But secrets don't rot slowly. They explode. It happened on a Wednesday. I'd returned to the penthouse briefly, pretending everything was normal, when I noticed something off. Raymond was in his study, drinking scotch, far earlier than usual. "You're back," he said, not looking up from his glass. "I forgot something." He turned then, slowly, as if savoring the moment. And I knew, by the way his jaw clenched and his eyes narrowed, that he knew. "I hope he was worth it," Raymond said. I froze. "Excuse me," I said, his voice low and deadly. "I hope he was worth it." "Because you've just declared war, my darling." He stood, walked over, and handed me a file. Inside were photographs, Emmy and Ethan, in public, kissing, laughing, and more than that, evidence, bank statements, hotel records, surveillance. Raymond hadn't just found out. He had documented everything. "This is just the beginning," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "You think you can walk away from me?" And waltzed into his arms without consequence. I tried to stay composed. "I'm not afraid of you." He laughed, not loudly, but the kind of laugh that chills the room. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not the one you should be afraid of. You've built your image on loyalty, grace, charity. But the moment this goes public, you'll be the villain, the scheming gold digger who cheated on the man who gave her everything." I clenched my fists. "You don't own me. I do. And you'll find out just how deep my reach goes." That night, I returned to Ethan's apartment shaken, but determined. I have to go public, I told him. Now. Before he does. He hesitated. Are you sure? I nodded. Let's get ahead of the narrative. If we wait, he'll twist everything. So we did. The next morning, my statement hit the press. I admitted the affair. I said the marriage had long been dead, that I had found love in an unexpected place, that I had no regrets, only the hope to live truthfully moving forward. The backlash was instant. Raymond's PR machine moved faster than ours. Articles painted me as a manipulative social climber. Old friends ghosted me. Brands I endorsed severed ties. The board of the charity I chaired held an emergency meeting. But the worst part, Ethan began to change. He wasn't cruel, but he grew distant. Where once he had held me through the chaos, now he seemed burdened by it. I didn't expect it to be this bad, he admitted one night. I told you it would be. I thought love was enough. So did I. We tried. We truly did. But love under siege is different than love in hiding. Without secrecy, without adrenaline, we had to face reality. And reality was brutal. I was a pariah. Ethan's business began to suffer from associations with me. Clients pulled out. Rumors swirled. What had once been our fantasy was now a shared nightmare. The final blow came at a gala. Yes, another gala. The same kind of event where we first locked eyes. Only this time, I wasn't the radiant wife of a tycoon. I was the fallen woman. The whisper behind champagne glasses. The scandal dressed in Dior. Ethan stood by my side, but I could feel the weight in his posture, the exhaustion, the regret he wouldn't say aloud. Later that night, I asked him, "Do you still want this?" He paused long. That silence was my answer. I left him a week later. No drama, no tears, just a note. I still love you, but I refuse to be someone's mistake. And I walked away, not back to Raymond, not to any man, but to myself. They say a mistress dreams of becoming the wife, but I learned that some dreams are better left unrealized, because what I wanted wasn't a title, or security, or even revenge. What I wanted was freedom, and freedom, I discovered, doesn't come from men like Raymond or Ethan. It comes from burning down every version of yourself that was built to please others, and walking out of the fire alone. The silence between them stretched across the penthouse like a drawn wire, ready to snap. Ethan sat in his office, surrounded by the trappings of wealth-polished marble, steel, and glass, but none of it could shield him from the consequences of what he had done. Vivian hadn't spoken to him in 2 days, not a single word. She moved through the house like a ghost, perfectly composed, but unreadable, and that scared Ethan more than if she had screamed at him. Her silence felt final. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Leela. "Leela, did you tell her?" He didn't answer. Instead, he deleted the message. He knew what he should do. End things with Leela. Try to fix his marriage. But each time he saw her name, felt that magnetic pull, his resolve wavered. Later that evening, Vivian appeared in the doorway. She looked breathtaking in her quiet fury, in the icy calm of a woman who had lost all illusions. "I know, Ethan," she said simply. "I've known for a while." He opened his mouth, but she raised her hand. "Don't insult me with lies." She walked in slowly, her heels echoing across the wooden floor. "I found the receipts, the hotel bookings, the necklace you bought her." Ethan lowered his eyes. "Vivian, I never wanted to hurt you." "You didn't just hurt me," she replied, her voice cracking slightly. "You humiliated me. You made me feel like I wasn't enough. After everything I gave up to build this life with you." She sat down across from him, composed but trembling. "I need time. I don't know if I can forgive this. Not now." And just like that, she stood up and walked away. The next morning, Ethan walked into his office and found Leela waiting for him. She wore a pale silk dress, like she belonged in another world. "His world, I heard," she said. He nodded. "She knows." A long silence stretched between them. "You're not going to leave her, are you?" she asked. He didn't respond. Leela took a step back. "I thought I meant more to you than this." "You do," he whispered. "But my life isn't just mine anymore. It's complicated. No, she said firmly. It's cowardice. And with that, she walked out. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt utterly alone. Days passed, then weeks. Vivian left to stay with her sister in Paris. Their apartment felt empty, and Ethan wandered through the rooms like a stranger in his own home. One evening, he stood by the window, drink in hand, watching the city lights flicker. That's when the doorbell rang. It was Leela, soaked in rain, her eyes red, but still striking. She pushed past him, threw her purse on the couch, and turned to face him. "Impregnant," she said. The world tilted. "What? I didn't plan it. But it's yours. I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should know." Ethan sat down slowly, like the weight of that truth had snapped something in him. He looked up at her. "Why now?" "Because you're still lying to yourself. About what you want. About who you are." Then she left again, leaving him to sit in the dark. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked the apartment, replaying everything, the affair, the deception, the slow destruction of the life he had built. And then Vivian called. Her voice was calm. "I heard about Leela," she said. He didn't ask how. "I'm not coming back, Ethan. Not now. Maybe not ever." A pause. "But I hope, for the child's sake, you become the man I thought I married." She hung up, and in that moment, Ethan realized he had lost everything. Not because he didn't love, but because he didn't choose. Because he had waited too long to be honest. Because he had thought he could keep both lives intact, his respectable marriage and his reckless passion. But in the end, the fall was inevitable. And now, the reckoning had come. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Ethan sat rigid, his hands folded in his lap, eyes fixed on the judge who was preparing to deliver the verdict. The gallery behind him was packed journalists, former colleagues, strangers hungry for scandal. And at the back, she stood, Clarissa, dressed in an ivory coat and sunglasses that hid the chaos in her eyes. When the judge spoke, his voice was flat, guilty of insider trading and obstruction of justice. A collective gasp rippled through the room. But Ethan didn't move. He didn't flinch, didn't look back. Not at Clarissa, not at his lawyer, not even at the cameras that had followed him like vultures for months. All he could think about was that moment in Clarissa's penthouse, when she whispered, "Trust me, I always win." Apparently, not this time. The weeks that followed blurred into a nightmare. Ethan lost everything: his job, his home, the respect he'd built over a lifetime. And Clarissa, she disappeared, vanished like fog at sunrise. No texts, no calls, not even a lawyer to show up on her behalf. Until one day, she appeared. It was raining hard that afternoon. Ethan was out on bail, sitting in a nearly empty cafe, staring into a coffee he couldn't afford. And then her voice, "Miss Nee." She sat down like it was the most natural thing in the world. No apology, no remorse, just the usual confident smirk and a new designer bag. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "You knew what would happen." Clarissa sipped her tea. "Of course I did. That's why I stayed quiet. You're the one who made the move. I never told you to leak those documents. You set me up. I protected us," she said calmly, "until you got sloppy. And love, I don't do sloppy." Her words felt like a slap, but somehow he wasn't surprised. The woman had fallen for, the one who lit fires in his chest, had always been a storm wrapped in silk. But there was more. Clarissa leaned in. "You're not going to prison." He frowned. "What?" She smiled, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside were documents, official ones, with the stamp of the DAS office. "I made a deal. They wanted something bigger than you," she said. "I gave them someone worse." Ethan couldn't breathe. "You sold someone else out to protect me." "No," she said with a grin. "I sold myself. Technically." As she got up to leave, Clarissa glanced back over her shoulder. "You should really learn to play the long game, Ethan. It's the only one that counts." And just like that, she was gone again. The next few months were a strange limbo. Ethan wasn't free, but he wasn't behind bars either. His name was smeared across headlines. Podcasts dissected every choice he'd ever made, and former colleagues crossed the street to avoid him. Yet somehow, he survived. He moved into a small apartment with peeling wallpaper and a view of a dumpster. Took a job managing deliveries at a warehouse. Humble, honest work, something he hadn't done in decades. But the nights belonged to Clarissa. She had become a phantom in his mind. Every whisper of wind reminded him of her perfume. Every sharp-tongued woman on the street. Every glint of jewelry. Every flash of a smile that was too confident, it all brought her back. Then, out of nowhere, an invitation. A sleek, black envelope appeared in his mailbox. No return address. Inside, a card. Clarissa Van Alstyne requests the pleasure of your company. One night only. The Grand Hotel, Suite 804. He should have burned it. But instead, he put on his best shirt, the one thing he hadn't sold, and went. The hotel lobby was dripping in gold and secrets. The elevator ride felt like a descent into madness. When the doors opened, she was waiting. Clarissa, in a crimson gown, holding two glasses of champagne. You came, she said, almost surprised. Ethan didn't speak. He took the glass, took a sip, and waited. Clarissa walked to the window, overlooking the city. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The power, the thrill. I miss the truth, he replied. She laughed. There was never any truth, Ethan. Just versions of it. He walked toward her slowly. So why did you call me here? She turned. Because I never said thank you. For what? For loving me when no one else did. There was a pause, a long one, and then she kissed him. It was slow, deliberate, not the kiss of lovers reuniting, but of two people acknowledging that no matter what came after, something real had existed once. When she pulled away, Clarissa's eyes shimmered not with tears, but something far more dangerous, finality. This is goodbye, Ethan, she said. I'm leaving the country. I made too many enemies here. You're running. No, I'm surviving. She handed him a folded piece of paper. You'll want to read this later. And she walked away for the last time. Ethan didn't open the paper until days later. It was a bank transfer receipt, a large one, from an offshore account, in his name. No message, no signature, just Clarissa's last move, a parting gift, a distraction, or another manipulation. He'd never know. But what he did know was this: love with a woman like Clarissa wasn't just a risk, it was a sentence. I didn't know where to run anymore. The walls were closing in. Secrets have a way of rotting in silence, until they scream loud enough to tear your world apart. The anonymous emails stopped after the third one, but the silence that followed was worse than the threats. It meant something was coming. I just didn't know what. Clarissa was calm, too calm. She sipped her wine by the pool like nothing had happened, like she wasn't the center of the hurricane. When I asked her if she'd been followed, she said, "Darling, I'm followed everywhere. That's the price of wealth." It didn't reassure me. In fact, the more she smiled, the more I felt like a pawn in a game, and I fully understood. She was always one move ahead, always wearing that same perfect red lipstick like a weapon. Natalie was distant. She didn't know. Not yet. But something in her had changed. She looked at me with softer eyes, not in affection, but like she was studying me, like she knew something was off. The guilt was unbearable. Then it happened. Clarissa's husband, Raymond Kingsley, showed up at the office. I'd never seen him in person before, only in photos, usually with a cigar or in a tailored suit. But that day, he wasn't polished. He looked tired, unshaven, and angry. He didn't yell, didn't punch me. He just said, "I know." That's it. 2 words that shattered me. "I know what you did with my wife." He tossed a manila envelope on my desk. Photos, the same ones from the email, the same timestamp, the same angles. "You have 24 hours, he added. "Then I'm coming for everything." And he walked out. Clarissa called me that night. "He confronted you." Yes. Her voice didn't even tremble. "Good. Let him." "Clarissa, this is spiraling. He's not bluffing. He'll destroy me." She took a breath. "Let him try." I finally asked the question I'd avoided 4 months. "Was this your plan?" "All along." Silence. Then, "I didn't plan to fall for you, Ethan. But I also didn't plan to stay in a cage forever." Raymond is powerful, yes, but you made me feel alive again. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Her words felt sincere, but so did the lies. The next morning, everything exploded. Natalie showed up to work early. Her face was pale, eyes swollen. She didn't speak, just handed me her phone. It was a message from an unknown number, with the same photos. She'd seen everything. I tried to speak, to explain, to fall to my knees if I had to, but she just shook her head. You weren't just cheating on me, she whispered. You were sleeping with a monster. She hurt people, Ethan. She ruins people. She walked out. She never came back. The fallout was brutal. Raymond filed lawsuits against me, against the company, against Clarissa. My career collapsed within weeks. Investors pulled out. My name was in tabloids, smeared across headlines I never thought I'd see. Clarissa's assets were frozen. Her social life ruined. Invitations stopped. Friends vanished. Her empire, once built on elegance and charm, crumbled under the weight of scandal. And still she smiled. Even when she lost the mansion, even when she was banned from elite clubs, even when we had nothing left but each other, she smiled. And I hated that part of me still loved her. We moved into a small apartment, to people who once had it all, now living on leftovers and borrowed time. She painted again, read poetry aloud at night, kissed me like nothing had changed. But I couldn't sleep, because everything had changed, and I couldn't tell if he'd won or lost. It's been 2 years now. I live alone. Clarissa left last spring. She said she needed to find herself again. I didn't stop her. Natalie is married now, to someone kind. I saw a photo once. Her smile was real. I don't blame her. I made my choices. I stood at the edge of a decision, and I jumped. I thought I was chasing passion, freedom, life. But what I found was something else. Addiction to danger, lust mistaken for love, and a lie I told myself over and over, until it became my truth. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision, knowing it could destroy everything, and still felt drawn toward it? What would you have done in Ethan's place? Let me know in the comments. Your voice matters.